Since the start of the war, Iran has conducted a wave of missile attacks against Israel.
Iran has unveiled a new ICBM that can reportedly reach the United States.
U.S. sources confirmed to CNN that an American fighter jet has been shot down over Iran.
On the night, Iran's drones and missiles turned the sky into a moving wall of fire. A simple story raced across the internet. Israel's Iron Dome had been smashed, weapons convoys were burning, and a new balance of power had arrived. But the truth was never that simple. Pause. Because this was not just a battle of machines in the air. It was a battle of speed, saturation, deception, and narrative, and the part most people missed changes everything. War in the Middle East no longer begins with a single explosion. It begins with a phone screen glowing in the dark, a siren tearing through the air, a family freezing in a stairwell, and 1,000 clips flooding social media before the smoke has even settled. By the time the first analyst opens a map, the story is already running ahead of the facts. That is why this matters now. Because when people hear Iron Dome, they imagine one magical shield over one small country, as if war were film and technology were a force field. But modern air defense is not magic. It is mathematics under pressure, people making split-second decisions, and layers of machines trying to solve impossible problems before impact. And that misunderstanding is exactly where the danger begins. Iran's direct attacks on Israel in 2024 did not simply test metal against metal. They tested a whole doctrine. Whether large waves of drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles could stretch a sophisticated defense network far enough for some warheads to slip through. Reuters reported that Israel's military itself said no air defense system is 100% perfect, even while describing an 80 to 90% success rate against the barrage. That one admission matters more than any slogan. A shield does not have to collapse to be challenged. It only has to be forced into a situation where every second, every interceptor, and every judgment call becomes more expensive than the last. Then there is the second layer of confusion, the convoy story. The phrase weapons convoy sounds like a dramatic final act, vehicles rushing through the night, hunted from the sky. But in this conflict, convoys are not a side plot. They are the bloodstream. For years, the shadow war between Israel and Iran has run through roads, borders, warehouses, and truck routes linking Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and beyond. In one Reuters report, Israel's top general claimed responsibility for a strike on a single weapons truck hidden within a convoy of 25 entering Syria from Iraq, underscoring how much this conflict depends on moving hardware quietly before the world notices. That means the air war and the convoy war are not separate stories. They are one story told from two altitudes. So if the viral headline says Iranian fighter jets, drones, and helicopters destroyed the Iron Dome and hit weapons convoys, the responsible question is not, is that dramatic? The responsible question is, what actually happened, what only partly happened, and what was never verified at all? Breath. Because once you answer that, the battlefield looks very different. The first truth is the simplest, and the one most often missed. There is no single shield called the Iron Dome protecting Israel from everything. Picture a defense operator staring at a screen filled with tracks, tiny glowing marks that represent objects moving at different speeds, altitudes, and intentions. Some are rockets. Some are drones. Some may be ballistic missiles falling back through the atmosphere so fast they turn the night itself into a warning. The operator does not see a legend. The operator sees a deadline. And above that operator is not one system, but a stack of systems, each designed for a different slice of the problem. Reuters describes the long-range Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 systems as the upper layer, built to intercept ballistic threats inside and outside the atmosphere. David Sling forms the middle layer for ballistic missiles, aircraft, drones, and cruise missiles. Iron Dome sits lower, designed originally for short-range rockets, mortars, and drones. Added to that is US-supplied THAAD, and even air-to-air defense by combat helicopters and fighter jets intercepting inbound drones. That is not a dome. That is an ecosystem. That distinction destroys the fantasy built into so many headlines. If a ballistic missile gets through, that does not automatically mean Iron Dome failed, because Iron Dome was never the main tool for that class of threat in the first place. If a drone is intercepted by a fighter jet far from Israeli cities, the story is not a lucky escape. It is proof that defense begins long before an object reaches a skyline. And if some missiles still penetrate, that does not mean the entire network has been destroyed. It means layered defense did what layered defense always does in real war: reduce damage, buy time, and accept that perfection does not exist. Shorter phrases go viral. The longer truth survives only if someone bothers to say it. This is also where the user-facing mythology around fighter jets and helicopters begins to collapse. There is no verified Reuters reporting showing Iranian fighter jets or war helicopters smashing Israeli air defense batteries in these 2024 attacks. In fact, Reuters reported the opposite operational image: Israeli combat helicopters and fighter jets firing air-to-air missiles to destroy drones heading toward Israel. That matters because it changes the frame completely. The drama was not Iranian aircraft roaring over Israel and tearing down the shield. The drama was a race to thin out incoming threats before they reached the inner rings of defense. And once you understand the architecture, another reality becomes unavoidable. The shield is powerful, but it is also expensive, finite, and forced to make decisions in real time. Iron Dome famously ignores rockets projected to land harmlessly, conserving interceptors for genuine threats. That means every incoming object is a question: intercept or hold? Spend now or save for later? Respond high or wait low? Slow down. Modern attacks are designed to weaponize that uncertainty. They do not just try to destroy hardware. They try to flood the decision-making process itself. So the first major point is not that Israel's defenses are invincible, and it is not that they were obliterated. The first major point is that the real battle begins with forcing a layered system to reveal its limits. And in April 2024, those limits were tested in full view of the world. When the first wave came, the sound reached people before the explanation did. In April 2024, Iran launched its first direct attack on Israeli territory, sending hundreds of drones and missiles into the night in retaliation for the deadly strike on its Damascus consulate. Reuters reported that sirens wailed across Israel, journalists heard heavy thuds and bangs from aerial interceptions, and a 7-year-old girl was critically injured. The Israeli military said Iran launched more than 200 drones and missiles, including dozens of ground-to-ground missiles and more than 10 cruise missiles, with most intercepted outside Israeli borders. The reported physical damage was relatively limited, light damage to one Israeli military facility, but that should not fool anyone into thinking the event was minor. A system can succeed and still be shaken. Think about the choreography of that night. Drones are slow enough to create dread. Cruise missiles complicate tracking. Ballistic missiles compress time into something brutal and almost abstract. Meanwhile, US and British aircraft reportedly helped shoot down some Israel-bound drones over the Iraq-Syria border area. The US military knocked down dozens more drones and missiles, and Jordan intercepted threats entering its airspace. This was not one country hiding under one umbrella. It was a region-wide emergency response spanning multiple layers, multiple states, and multiple timelines, all converging on a single question: how many of these things can be stopped before even one of them lands where it should not? Now look at the psychological effect. To the casual viewer online, the attack produced two apparently contradictory impressions. On one hand, many incoming threats were intercepted, suggesting the defenses worked. On the other, the sheer scale of the barrage created the feeling that a threshold had been crossed, that a future once described in think tank briefings had suddenly become visible in the open sky. Both impressions were true. The shield held, but the warning was unmistakable. Iran could force Israel and its allies into a high-tempo defense against massed aerial attack. The point was not just destruction. The point was demonstration. And while much of the world watched the sky, the older shadow war kept moving on the ground. Weapons convoys did not disappear because drones were in the headlines. They became even more important. Reuters reporting on an earlier claimed Israeli strike at the Iraq-Syria border described a convoy of 25 trucks in which Israel said only one, truck number 8, was carrying weapons. That detail is almost cinematic in its precision, but it reveals something colder underneath. This conflict is fought not only through spectacular barrages, but through the patient hunting of logistics: one truck, one route, one warehouse, one transfer point at a time. The convoy war is the silent partner of the missile war. If the missiles are the fist, the convoys are the artery feeding it. That is why the phrase weapons convoy can mislead. It suggests a convoy attacking Israel directly, when the better documented pattern is a regional contest over transferring, hiding, and interdicting weapons before they are used. It is less dramatic than the viral version. It is also more important. Because the side that can keep weapons moving without being seen gains tomorrow's leverage, not just tonight's headline. And once Iran showed it could launch in the hundreds, the value of every concealed route and every surviving shipment became even higher. But April was only the opening act. The bigger lesson had not yet landed. The real turning point came when the attack became faster, denser, and much harder to read in real time. Here is the part that changes the whole story. Modern air defense does not need to be physically destroyed to be strategically pressured. In October 2024, Iran launched a larger and more complex ballistic missile attack against Israel, one that Reuters said involved more than 180 missiles and more advanced weapons than the April strikes. Analysts cited by Reuters said the attack appeared to include Fattah 1 and key Barshikan missiles, systems Iran says have maneuvering warheads and use solid fuel, which shortens launch preparation time and helps multiple missiles arrive nearly together. That matters because defense is easiest when threats arrive in separable waves. It gets harder when the sky stops behaving like a queue and starts behaving like a collapse. One analyst told Reuters that shorter launch preparation means missiles arrive all at once to further stress the defense. Another warned that if Iran coordinated larger ballistic salvos with cruise missiles and drones, more warheads would likely get through. Read that carefully. The decisive idea is not simply missile range or warhead size. It is concurrency, compression, the ability to force defenders to solve too many lethal equations at the same time. In April, the defenders had more warning from slow-moving drones and cruise missiles. In October, the timeline tightened. The burden increased. And the battlefield shifted from interception as a demonstration of strength to interception as a test of endurance. This is the aha moment most headlines miss. The real ambition of a saturation attack is not always to erase the shield in one dramatic explosion. It is to make the shield spend, guess, split, and strain until some portion of the incoming threat survives the trip. You do not have to destroy every battery. You only have to make the defense network live inside its own limits. If enough advanced missiles arrive with enough speed, even a high interception rate can still allow meaningful penetration. That is why Reuters reported that some Iranian missiles were breaking through even while Israeli officials emphasized a high overall success rate. Both can be true at once. And that leads to the biggest correction of all. The viral claim says Iranian fighter jets, drones, and war helicopters destroyed the Iron Dome. But the better supported reality is more nuanced and, in some ways, more unsettling. There is no strong verified reporting here of Iranian fighter jets or helicopters carrying out that cinematic takedown. What there is, instead, is evidence that Iran used large drone and missile barrages to probe, saturate, and partially penetrate a layered defense system, while Israeli and Allied air and missile defenses intercepted much of the attack and still could not make the sky perfectly safe. That story is less satisfying to people who want a clean winner. It is far more useful to anyone who wants to understand the future of war. Because the future of war is not just fought in the air. It is fought in the feed. As the attacks unfolded, misinformation spread almost as fast as the footage itself. AP debunked clips falsely described as Iranian missiles falling over Israel, a mass Israeli exodus, and even an alleged strike on an Israeli nuclear power plant, tracing them instead to unrelated events in Algeria, France, and Ukraine. It also noted that other fighter jet footage circulating in the wider information war was fabricated or taken from a video game. This matters because propaganda no longer waits for historians. It now arrives in the same minute as the sirens, trying to define the meaning of the attack before investigators can define the facts. In that environment, a false claim that the Iron Dome was destroyed can be more contagious than the evidence that says otherwise. So the big reveal is not that one side found a miracle weapon. The big reveal is that modern conflict rewards those who can combine precision, volume, timing, logistics, and narrative pressure all at once. A convoy keeps the missiles moving. A barrage keeps the defense busy. A viral clip keeps the public confused. Our emphasis. And if you can do all three together, you do not just attack a country's defenses, you attack its sense of certainty. Step back and the pattern becomes clear. The so-called dome was never one dome. The convoy was never just a convoy. The attack was never just about what exploded, but about what was forced into motion: interceptors, alliances, warning systems, border routes, and public belief itself. A breath. This is what makes the story so difficult and so urgent. Every layer worked, and every layer was still exposed. Which brings us to the only ending that makes sense: not victory, not collapse, but a harder truth about what these battles are really teaching the world.